Okay, now we're going to sculpt an eye. Here's your model for the head. So now we're going to practice doing an eye. We're not going to practice on our actual head sculpture. We'll practice just on a plain piece of clay first. Use your tool with one of the large balls on the end and make a depression for the eye socket. You want it to be as deep as you can. You're going to roll just a sphere of clay, and you want it to fit nicely down into the socket. This one's too big. So let's try again. Take a little bit of clay off. Alright, this one fits just right, but it's poking out too far. We don't want the eye to stick out that far from the face, you can see. So one option is to cut it in half carefully, because you don't want to lose the rounded part of the eye. That's why we rolled it into a sphere in the first place. Okay, so you just gently reshape it. And you just pop it back in the eye socket. Do not press down on the sphere. If you do, then it's going to flatten it. Then you're going to have to take it out and redo it. Alright, now we're going to do the eyelids. We'll start with the bottom eyelid. Roll out a little coil of clay. Make the ends a little bit narrower than the center, and we're going to want to end up with a crescent shape. And you just press this out gently, and you're going to make it thinner on the top of the eyelid part. We want that to be thin and delicate so that it drapes across the eyeball. This will give it depth. Get the inner part as smooth as you can. You don't want any irregularities or burrs to be in the eyelid. Don't rush this step. Then you're going to peel it carefully up from your work surface and gently drape it over the bottom quarter about of your eyeball. Drape it just gently. Once you get it in place, you never touch the top of that bottom eyelid again. Where it touches the eyeball, you're never going to touch that part again, because if you do, it's very easy for it to be pressed in too far, and then you lose that sense of three-dimensionality. You can use your fingers, or if there are little parts that get a little bit hard to get your finger to, or you're afraid it's going to get too close to the eyelid where it touches the eyeball, then yes, use one of your tools, just whichever seemed to work best for you. Don't touch the eyeball. You're going to blend the bottom part of the eyelid. You're going to blend that into the face. Alright, let's do the top eyelid. Basically, it's just the same as the bottom eyelid. Generally, you're going to give it more of a curve because you're going to want this top eyelid to overlap the corners of the bottom one. Not hugely, but a bit. You'll need to make this one wider and taller because it's going to cover more area than the bottom eyelid did. Again, you want that center part to be very smooth. The part that's going to touch the eyeball, you want it to be very smooth and as delicate as you can make it. That part of the eye, the eyelid, is very thin, and so you want to be able to convey that with the clay. Again, this polymer clay is very versatile. It's quite forgiving. And again, you're just going to gently drape it over the eyeball, generally over the top quarter of the eyeball, but of course you can adjust that for different eyes. If you have not blended it down, you can still carefully lift the eyelid to change the position of it on the eyeball. And when you get it the way that you want it, then you'll blend it again. You don't touch the eyelid where it touches the eyeball. And you also don't want to lose the little crease where it overlaps the bottom eyelid. Just blend in the top parts of it. Of course, you'll want that all blended in very nicely. You've got a space there between the eyeball and the eyelid. You want to keep that. It's going to give a sense of depth to the eye. You want that shadow. Gently smooth it. Be very careful that you do not touch the eyelids right where they're at the eyeballs. Now, if you have just made a mistake and you think it's small and you think you can fix it just by lifting the lid a little, you can use one of your sharp sculpting tools to gently lift it. But if it's really down in it, you're just going to need to start over. Sometimes the smooth tools will help us blend it more easily, but your hands, your fingers are your very best tools when you're working with any kind of clay. But of course you want to use your other sculpting tools if you have them. You'll want to use those to help you. However, if you do not have sculpting tools, there's none of this that could not be done just with your hands. Even in the beginning, cutting the eyeball in half, you can still gently pull it apart if you need to with your fingers. And again, if you have made a little mistake, then you can gently slide the sharp sculpting tool underneath the eyelid. Really, you should not do this. If you don't have the tools and you really think that you need to do it and it's just a small fix, you can try and do it with a straight pin. But your best bet is to just be careful as you smooth it. And always remember, if you make a big mistake with it, it doesn't have to be a big deal. Rip out that eye and start it over.